Have you ever seen someone disappear from your life overnight? No arguments. No drama. Just silence. One day they were warm, understanding, always there. The next day, they are gone. Messages unanswered. Calls ignored. Your presence erased. If the person was an INFJ, you may have experienced something called the INFJ door slam. It is one of the most mysterious behaviors in personality psychology, and also one of the most misunderstood. The INFJ personality type is known as the rarest type in the MBTI personality system. They are deeply empathetic, emotionally intelligent, and incredibly patient. But when that patience breaks, the door closes. Completely. No half-open doors. No second chances. Just silence. So what pushes an INFJ to this point? Today we will explore 12 INFJ door slam triggers. If you understand these, you will understand the INFJ mind. And maybe, you will never face that closed door. Let's begin. What is the INFJ door slam? Before we talk about triggers, we must understand the meaning. The INFJ door slam is not a sudden emotional explosion. It looks sudden from the outside, but inside the INFJ mind, it has been building for a very long time. INFJs are natural peacekeepers. They avoid conflict. They forgive more than most people. They give second chances, then third chances, sometimes even 10th chances. But they are also deeply intuitive. They notice patterns. They remember emotional wounds. And slowly, their mind starts collecting evidence. Evidence that something is not healthy. Evidence that someone does not respect them. Evidence that the relationship is draining their soul. When that realization becomes clear, something shifts. The INFJ stops trying. They stop explaining. They stop hoping the other person will change. And then, the door closes. The connection is cut. Emotionally, mentally, sometimes permanently. This is not revenge. This is protection. INFJs do not slam the door out of anger. They slam the door to protect their inner peace. That is why the INFJ door slam psychology fascinates so many people online. It is quiet, but powerful. Now let's explore the first trigger. 1. Chronic emotional manipulation. INFJs can sense emotional manipulation faster than most people. They read subtle signals, tone of voice, body language, energy shifts. They notice when someone twists guilt into a weapon, or uses kindness to control others. At first, the INFJ gives the benefit of the doubt. Maybe the person is hurting. Maybe they didn't mean it. Maybe things will improve. But manipulation rarely stops. It becomes a pattern. Small emotional traps. Silent guilt. Pressure disguised as love. Over time, the INFJ becomes exhausted. Their empathy gets used against them. And that hurts deeply. Because INFJs care intensely about authenticity. They want real emotions, not psychological games. When they realize someone is manipulating them repeatedly, something inside them hardens. The INFJ begins to withdraw, quietly. And when the emotional manipulation continues, the door closes. For good. 2. Repeated betrayal of trust. Trust is sacred to an INFJ. They do not trust easily. But when they do, they trust completely. They share their inner world, their fears, their dreams, their vulnerabilities. This is rare, because INFJs usually keep their deepest thoughts hidden. So when someone betrays that trust, the pain cuts deep. It may start small. A broken promise. A private secret shared with others. A moment of dishonesty. The INFJ forgives. But they never forget the emotional data. They watch carefully. If the betrayal happens again, the INFJ begins to see a pattern. And patterns matter to them. Because INFJs use introverted intuition, a cognitive function that detects long-term patterns in human behavior. If trust continues to break, the INFJ eventually stops believing the person can change. That is when the emotional door begins closing. Silently. 3. Constant disrespect. INFJs may appear gentle, quiet, even shy. But inside, they carry strong values. Respect is one of those values. They respect other people's feelings, other people's time, other people's boundaries. So when someone repeatedly disrespects them, it feels deeply wrong. Disrespect can appear in many forms: talking over them, mocking their ideas, ignoring their emotions, dismissing their intuition, or treating them like they are too sensitive. INFJs often tolerate this longer than they should. They stay patient. They try to communicate calmly. But if disrespect becomes normal, something changes. The INFJ stops seeing the relationship as safe, and safety matters to them more than comfort. Eventually, they stop investing energy. Then one day, they disappear. 4. Emotional one-sided relationships. INFJs give a lot. They listen. They support. They understand emotions most people ignore. Friends often come to them for advice, for comfort, for healing conversations. INFJs gladly offer this support. But there is a hidden danger. Some people take without giving back. They treat the INFJ like an emotional therapist. They unload their problems, their stress, their pain. But they never ask the INFJ how they feel, never listen deeply, never return the emotional energy. At first, the INFJ accepts this role. They enjoy helping people grow. But slowly, exhaustion appears. The emotional balance feels wrong. The INFJ begins to feel invisible. And that loneliness can be painful. Because INFJs also need to be understood. When the imbalance continues too long, the INFJ stops investing. And the door quietly closes. 5. Fake personalities and inauthentic behavior. INFJs crave authenticity. Real thoughts. Real emotions. Real intentions. They are extremely sensitive to fake personalities. Pretending to be someone else. Putting on social masks. Acting differently depending on who is watching. Most people tolerate this social behavior. INFJs struggle with it. Their intuition constantly scans for truth. When they detect dishonesty in someone's personality, it creates internal tension. They start questioning everything. Is this person genuine? Are their words real? Or just performance? If the inauthentic behavior continues, the INFJ slowly loses emotional connection. Because connection requires trust, and trust requires authenticity. Without it, the relationship feels empty. Eventually, the INFJ steps away. Not loudly, just quietly. 6. Violation of personal boundaries. INFJs appear open and caring, but they still need boundaries. Strong ones. Because their empathy absorbs emotional energy from others. Without boundaries, they become overwhelmed. Unfortunately, some people ignore those limits. They demand constant attention, constant emotional support, constant availability. They assume the INFJ will always be there. But INFJs need solitude, silence, time to recharge their mind. When someone repeatedly violates those boundaries, the INFJ feels invaded. Like their emotional space is not respected. They may try explaining gently. They may hint politely. But if the person keeps pushing, something inside shuts down, and the door begins to close. 7. Gaslighting and psychological mind games. One of the fastest ways to lose an INFJ forever is gaslighting. Gaslighting is a psychological manipulation tactic. It happens when someone twists reality. They deny things they clearly said. They dismiss emotions. They make the other person question their own perception. For many personality types, gaslighting can work for a long time. But INFJs are different. Their intuition is strong, very strong. They constantly analyze patterns. They remember details. They notice inconsistencies. At first, the INFJ may question themselves. Maybe I misunderstood. Maybe I remembered wrong. Maybe I am being too sensitive. But over time, the contradictions become clear. Words do not match actions. Promises disappear. Reality feels distorted. This creates deep psychological discomfort for an INFJ. Because truth matters deeply to them. Authenticity matters. Clarity matters. Gaslighting attacks all three. Once the INFJ recognizes this pattern, their trust collapses. And trust, once broken repeatedly, rarely returns. The INFJ stops explaining, stops arguing, stops defending their perception. They simply step away. Quietly. Permanently. The door closes. 8. Moral hypocrisy. INFJs are deeply guided by values. Not superficial values, but core moral principles. Honesty, kindness, integrity, fairness. They often feel responsible for protecting these values in their relationships. So when someone claims strong morals, but behaves differently, the INFJ notices immediately. For example, someone who speaks about loyalty, but constantly betrays trust. Someone who talks about kindness, but secretly humiliates others. Someone who pretends to care, but only when it benefits them. To the INFJ mind, this contradiction creates emotional conflict, because they do not separate words from actions. To them, character is proven through behavior, not speeches, not promises. If moral hypocrisy continues for long enough, the INFJ loses respect. And once respect disappears, emotional connection fades quickly. They may still act polite, still smile, still remain calm, but internally, the relationship is already ending. The INFJ door begins to close long before anyone notices. 9. Emotional invalidation. INFJs feel emotions deeply, not only their own, but other people's emotions too. They absorb emotional signals like emotional antennas. This emotional intelligence makes them excellent listeners, supportive friends, and insightful partners. But this sensitivity also makes them vulnerable, because when someone dismisses their emotions, it hurts deeply. Emotional invalidation sounds like this: you are overreacting. You are too sensitive. You're imagining things that shouldn't bother you. For many people, these words might be annoying. For an INFJ, they are deeply painful. Because INFJs spend so much time validating others, understanding others, respecting emotional experiences. When their own emotions are dismissed, it feels unfair. It feels lonely, like their inner world does not matter. At first, the INFJ tries to explain. They try to communicate calmly. But if the dismissal continues, the INFJ stops sharing. Their emotional world becomes private again. Eventually, the relationship becomes emotionally empty, and the door closes. 10. Being taken for granted. INFJs give quietly. They do not demand recognition. They do not seek constant praise. But they still notice when their effort is invisible, when their kindness becomes expected, when their support becomes normal. Being taken for granted slowly drains the INFJ spirit. They continue helping, continue listening, continue caring. But inside, a quiet question begins forming. Does this person appreciate me, or do they simply expect me to stay? This question grows stronger over time, because INFJs notice patterns of gratitude, or the lack of it. If someone only contacts them when they need help, only reaches out during personal crises, only appears when emotional support is required, the INFJ eventually understands something painful. The relationship is not balanced. And INFJs believe deeply in emotional reciprocity. They believe healthy relationships require mutual care, not one-sided effort. Once they fully realize they are being taken for granted, their energy withdraws. And when the emotional energy disappears, the door quietly shuts. 11. Persistent negativity and toxic energy. INFJs care deeply about emotional atmosphere. The emotional energy around them matters a lot. They are naturally drawn to growth, meaningful conversations, deep reflection, personal development. But some people carry constant negativity. Every conversation becomes a complaint. Every situation becomes drama. Every problem becomes someone else's fault. At first, the INFJ tries to help. They offer perspective, encouragement, solutions. They genuinely want people to grow. But some people do not want growth. They want validation for staying stuck. They repeat the same problems again and again, with no desire to change. Over time, this drains the INFJ emotionally. Their empathy becomes exhausted. Their mental space becomes heavy. Eventually, the INFJ understands something important. You cannot save someone who refuses to grow, and you cannot carry someone else's emotional weight forever. To protect their peace, the INFJ steps back. The distance grows, and the door slowly closes. 12. When the INFJ realizes nothing will change. This final trigger is the most powerful, because it represents the final realization. INFJs are patient, extremely patient. They believe in growth, in healing, in second chances. They truly hope people will evolve. But INFJs are also intuitive pattern thinkers. Their mind constantly observes long-term behavior. And eventually, a quiet truth appears. Some people never change. Not because they cannot, but because they choose not to. They repeat the same hurtful patterns, the same broken promises, the same emotional harm. And in that moment, the INFJ reaches clarity, deep clarity. They understand the relationship has reached its limit, not out of anger, not out of revenge, but out of acceptance. The INFJ finally understands that staying will only create more pain. So they make a silent decision. They withdraw emotionally, detach mentally, and step away permanently. That is the moment of the INFJ door slam. Not dramatic, not loud, just final. Why the INFJ door slam feels so sudden? Many people are confused when it happens. They say things like, "Everything seemed fine. We were talking normally. I had no idea they were upset." But the truth is, the signs were there. INFJs rarely express anger openly. They internalize conflict. They reflect silently. They analyze emotions privately. And during this time, they are observing, watching patterns, testing hope, waiting for change. Sometimes this process lasts months, sometimes years. By the time the door finally slams, the INFJ has already processed the entire relationship internally, emotionally, logically, intuitively. The decision is complete. That is why they rarely come back. Not because they lack compassion, but because they already exhausted every possibility. Can the INFJ door slam be reversed? Sometimes people ask this question. Can an INFJ reopen the door? The honest answer is, rarely. Once the INFJ reaches emotional closure, it becomes very difficult to reverse. Their mind has already reorganized reality. The relationship becomes part of their past. However, in rare situations, reconciliation can happen, but only under very specific conditions. Genuine accountability, real behavioral change, deep emotional honesty, and time. A lot of time. Even then, the relationship may never return to what it once was. Because trust, once broken repeatedly, leaves permanent marks. The hidden truth about INFJs. Despite the mystery around the INFJ personality type, the truth is simple. INFJs do not want to slam doors. They prefer harmony, understanding, growth, connection. But they also understand something essential about life. Peace is valuable. Mental health matters. And emotional boundaries are necessary. The INFJ door slam is not cruelty. It is self-protection. It is the final boundary. The final act of emotional self-respect. If you have an INFJ in your life, value them. Listen to them. Respect their boundaries. Because INFJs will forgive many things. But once their heart decides to close the door, it rarely opens again. And if you are an INFJ watching this, remember something important. Protecting your peace is not selfish. Setting boundaries is not cruelty. Walking away from toxicity is not weakness. Sometimes, closing the door is the healthiest decision you can make.